It's Colin by PORSCHE, just doing another video on my 1999 911 C4 996 model. Just going to talk to you about this just briefly. So yes, I've got a 911. The reason I have a 996 is because I can't afford an air-cooled 911. That doesn't mean that this isn't a good car. It is a great car. It's still a 911. It looks like a 911. Engine's in the back like a 911. Handles and goes like a 911. But I can't afford an air-cooled. If I could really have any 911, it would be probably a 964, but I can't afford one. So this is what I have, and I've had it since January, and I absolutely love it. It's a 911 through and through. It's a great car. So a couple of things I wanted to talk about, which gets a lot of talking time and people's backs up and stuff like that. But the headlights, first of all. Obviously, when they introduced the 996, they moved away from the normal headlight setup that they had from day one on 911s, and they went to this one, and I really like it. And it's really come of age now, this style of headlight. People are beginning to warm to it a lot more than they did when it was first introduced, and derived from a Le Mans racer. So I don't think you get better than that, and we all know how predominant Porsche has been at Le Mans. So, you know, I think that's a good thing. Really like it. The other couple of things I want to talk about is IMS bearing, because I don't think you can do a video on 996s without talking about IMS and ball scoring. So IMS bearing, had this replaced. I've had this from January this year, 2024, and I had it replaced about 6 to 8 weeks ago, can't remember exactly now. And the reason I had that done is because there was lots of talk, and I researched it, that the IMS bearing, there was only 1% failure rate across the world, which was very, very small, but I did not want to be one of that 1%. And it was a dual row bearing, so they were stronger on this particular age of vehicle, but I still didn't want to be that 1%. And every time I drove it, before I had the IMS bearing done, it was always in the back of my mind that it might go at any moment. And that kind of spoiled the drive for me, really. Cost of the new bearing was £600, plus fitting, and there's other things that you would do, which I had done at the same time: clutch, flywheel, rear main seal, and other bits and pieces. So I had that done, and that has now lifted the driving experience, because I know it's done, and I'm not going to get a failure on it. So that was really worth doing. The cost of doing it, as I said, was £600 for the bearing, plus other stuff that you have done. But a new engine, which is what you would need if the IMS bearing did decide to break, is £12,000 to £15,000. So to me, it was a no-brainer to have that done. So I did that. Ball scoring is another thing that these cars are reported to fail or have a failure on. This one was checked about 3,000 miles ago. No ball scoring was found. I think, and I don't know for sure, I think ball scoring affects the cars that have done a lot less miles. This one's on 103,000 miles now. It was on 101 when I got it. And it seems to me that the cars that fail most are those that are not driven as regularly, they sit around a long time, or their owners start them, run them to warm them up before they're taken for a drive. And I've been told and read lots of forums and stuff that you just start it and drive it, keep the revs low while you're driving until it's warmed up, and then you can drive it like a 911 should be driven. So I just want to go inside now and point out to you a couple of things that's been mentioned about the 996, so I'm going to do that now. So, this is the interior of the 996. It was criticised for having plasticky buttons. Don't know what happened there. Plasticky buttons and rather a cheap finish. But I actually like the finish. And if you look at lots of vehicles from this era, particularly German, Mercedes, BMW, they all have a very similar finish. So this vehicle was nothing unusual. But in actual fact, the buttons have really stood the test of time. They still look clean, tidy, they're not worn out, which I think is probably a lot to do with the fact that, you know, it's a Porsche, so they did build things well. The infotainment centre, oh, I shouldn't call it that really, it's just a stereo. Is obviously old-fashioned. There's no sat-nav, there's no Apple Play, there's none of that, but in my mind I'm quite happy with what we have here, which is a CD changer in the boot. This works perfectly well for me. When I'm driving, I want to be driving. I'm not interested in Apple Play and talking on my phone. I just want to drive the car, so I'm not too worried. I like it as it is. It does everything I need it to do. The other thing that people talk about within the early 996 Gen 1 996s is no glove box. Well, that doesn't really bother me either, because in each of the doors you have these cubby holes, and they're actually really deep, quite wide, and I can get plenty of stuff in both doors. There's also the central cubby hole, which again you can get plenty in. There's a little cubby hole here, and I don't find on a car that you drive just for weekends, purely for pleasure rather than all week, there's enough storage in here for weekend driving. Don't need any more space. So that's the way I look at this really. The other thing is, with the 996 Gen 1, no cup holders. Again, that doesn't bother me at all. Being a manual, it's difficult to drink your coffee while you're driving anyway, and probably, I don't know whether it's illegal, but it's probably not advised. And quite honestly, when I'm driving, if I decide that I want to get a coffee, I'd rather stop somewhere, go inside, get a coffee, sit down and admire my car from across the car park. I'd much rather do that. Finish my coffee, go back to the vehicle, get back in it and carry on the driving to wherever I was going. And I think I've covered everything I wanted to talk about the 996 really. It's a great car inside, it's as 911 as anything else. And truthfully, when the car was launched and it was road tested by all the motoring journalists of the time, whether it be in the UK, America or across the world, I've only seen videos from the time from America and the UK, and every motoring journalist said they were fantastic cars. They were a great improvement over what came before, which in this case was the 993. They said they were more economical, they handled better, they performed better, they were better built or better laid out, not necessarily better built, better laid out inside. And you know, they used to drive cars for a living, and high-end and good quality cars and all sorts of cars. So for them to say that at the time, it must have been a good car. Now things have moved on since the 996. We've had the 997 and so on and so forth, and everything improves. Some cars gain weight and so on and so forth, but you know, I think this is a really good car. I'm proud to say I own a 911, proud to say I own a 911 996, and proud to say I own a 911 996 Gen 1. So, bye Auto Valet. More videos to come.